Hi everyone, I'm back and today I want to show you how to draw this stitch. We're going to use a method I like to call drawing with shapes because we're going to block out some generic shapes and then refine them to turn it into stitch. So for this, I'm going to use a blank piece of paper, and this time I'm going to use a pencil. I'm hoping you can see it all right because we're going to have to do some erasing. So I like to keep up on my screen the stitch photo, and in a lot of my drawings I like to start with the head. So we're going to do that. Now Stitch has this sort of rounded head, more like a flat oval, and I'm just going to look at that shape and I'm going to start with that curve. And I can see the bottom is very similar to the top. If you look at his mouth, it almost cuts the head in half. So I'm just roughing out that shape. That looks good to me. He's got those big ears. If I look at those, I see they round, but I'm just looking at the outline. I'm not paying attention to any of those details. So look where his arm starts. We've got about this much space in between his arm and the rest of his face, a little bit more on the other side. And I'm going to include that part of his belly in there. So I think I might have made this too long because I'm looking to see, and it looks like his head is about the same height as his body. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that down a little bit more. All right, that's better. He's got his legs that come out and they go a little round, so I'll just make a little round part. I'm not even worrying about cleaning up my lines. Like I said, I'm just roughing everything out. I'll go ahead and erase this because we have a light blue part that goes from the middle of his head down to his belly. That's the same color. Now that I've done this, I can really go look more closely at these shapes. So I'll start with his head shape. And it's not as quite football shaped. He's looking a little bit like Hey Arnold right now. So I need to go up a little more with my line. I'll do the same on this side. All right, now that I have gone in and refined his head a little bit more, I'm going to erase that other line. It's looking a little boxy there. There we go. And I'm going to outline this at the end. So even if I'm getting sketchy, I know that my Sharpie is thicker and it's going to cover that anyways. His ear shape's not bad from what I have roughed out. I can go in and add some details now. So we've got this V that is the outside of his ear. Then he actually has this little piece taken out up here. And his ear is rounded, whereas I had made it a little bit more pointy. Other side, same thing. We've got this V shape. This actually goes over a little bit. Okay, and he actually has that little dip on towards the bottom here. Again, it's rounded at the top. I'll clean this up just a tad. It's starting to look more like Stitch now. I'm going to go ahead and put that line in for his mouth. So like I said, it kind of divides the middle of his head. And I'm paying attention to how close this goes to this part of his cheek right here. It's pretty close. Like I said before, that goes down and forms his belly. I'm just going to do 2 lines for now because I still have to put in his arms. His nose, we could think of that as sort of a round triangle. So I'm going to roughen his nose. His eyes, they kind of come to more of a point towards his nose. And the light blue around his eyes actually does touch his nose. I'm noticing that I've definitely made the line too high for his mouth. So when I go in and refine that, I will bring it lower. Do a more rounded nose at the bottom. It's a little more rounded at top. See this little line connecting his nose to his mouth. So his mouth line actually continues out into a smile. Okay, now that I've got his nose shape fixed, I could go in and really determine where these lines should be for his eyes. Clean it up a little bit. Same thing with the other one. I can see this actually goes all the way to the top of his head. It doesn't stop how I've had it. Then connects with his nose. Got about the right amount of space from that line of his mouth. See, this nostril starts about where the line is of the outer part of his eye. Same over here, it just goes up a little bit. Now we'll put those teardrop eyes in. So they definitely come to a point towards the nostril. They're quite teardrop shaped. This one actually looks a little rounder. The eyes are very important. That's what's going to give us a big likeness to the character. So I want to make sure I leave enough space between the inner part of his eye and the outer part. While I'm at it, oh, I've noticed that I brought that in a little too much, so there we go. While I'm at it, I'm just going to put the highlights in. And you can see that Stitch is really starting to take shape here. He's got these little scrunchies on top of his nose. I maybe want to bring up his head just a tad. So as you go, you're just going to keep refining and refining, starting with those simpler geometric shapes. There we go. And adding his little tufts of hair, which are like 3 little triangles. Some wrinkles here. So we just bring over his eye, and his ear actually extends down. Okay. I'm going to go back in and refine the light blue mouse shape. It's pretty good on this side. Maybe bring it down a little. And I see that he's got this natural wrinkle where his neck is sitting on his shoulder. Now this part of the shoulder is sort of bulbous, so I want to make sure I get that. Now go ahead and put this shoulder in too. Now that I have that, I can correct the shape of his arms. So they're not straight lines at all, they are curved. It's much better. It almost looks like he's got some muscles. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go in and do a little bit more refining on that foot shape. So it's pretty close to halfway between this part that his knee is. Then of course we still have that round foot shape. Now I noticed that I actually need to go up to his shoulder for this side. There we go, it's connected. Now we'll start on his fingers. I'm just going to do a little triangle for his claws for now. And of course, we'll go back in and refine it. Good enough for now. Let's go to the other one, which is basically the same thing, just backwards. Triangle shape for nails or claws. All right. And now I can go back and refine that shape. So I actually made this claw too big. This one needs to be a little longer. Okay. That looks good. I'll erase this inner line. Go to the other side. Refine the thumb a little bit. Up. Bring this closer. There we go. Do a little erasing. If you erase some of your lines by accident, that's okay. You can just go back and redefine them. Okay, now we have got his feet. Just gonna put in his sole right here. Sort of follows that round shape we already have. So now I'm adding anything that I have missed, blocking out the shapes. So definitely his little toes. And his claws on his feet, the way they are more circular. Definitely erase this line and this one. So that just continues without being cut off. This one, we actually just have a little bit of that line that continues. Okay. Over to the next one. One of these is sort of hidden. Sometimes I can reuse my lines. Sometimes they're pretty close to the right spot. And I just go back and rework them a little. Same sort of erasing as before. I'm just going to erase this because I need to bring it in more. Kind of rests more flat like that. So he's looking pretty good. I'm going to grab my marker, just using a permanent marker. And one thing you want to really look for here is if you have a line that continues, like I had on the ear here, I really want to do that at the same time as this other line. That just makes it look more natural. Remember, nothing is really sharp on here. He's pretty organic and round shaped. I can even make little corrections as I go. Like this is actually part of the same line. I feel like sometimes I get a little random with how I'm outlining. Just doing what makes sense to me. There's really no order you have to follow. Make sure I get all his little wrinkles that give him character. So I know this mouth is a continuous line. I really think the added contrast of outlining just totally brings your drawing to life. Especially with cartoons, I almost always put a black outline. And I try not to fuss too much with making it completely perfect. It's your own drawing. It's going to have some differences. Just double checking to make sure I got everything. I think I did. Oh, what I would typically do is go in lightly with my eraser and get rid of those extra lines. You don't have to do this. Just go real lightly with your eraser. Depending on what paper you're using, it might tear. So I always with really any utensil, I just don't press too hard. I just have a light pressure. And really, that's it. That is drawing with shapes. He doesn't look exact, but he looks pretty close. I'm happy with him. And you should be happy with your drawing too. We are trying to do a likeness to Stitch, but like I said, if he's not exact, that's okay. He's one of a kind, hand-drawn, and he's super cute. I would color him now.